Hi, I'm Alex Paulton. I'd like to welcome you to another episode of Talking Timepieces, where we talk about watch collecting and horology. Today, I was going to do a video on the Zenith Rainbow. The Zenith Rainbow is a very beautiful piece. It was introduced in 1992 and was voted in 1993 by a German enthusiasts watch collecting publication as the #1 chronograph of the year, ahead of the Daytona and the Speedmaster, actually. And back then, someone could make the argument that this is a Daytona copy. And so I was going to do the video on this, and I will do a video on this. In fact, after I do this, I'll just turn off the camera, turn it on again, and I'll record the next segment about the Rainbow, the Zenith Rainbow, which is a great watch. And a lot of people associate it with the multicolored version, but there's only one multicolored version of the Rainbow, and it's not named for that. It's named for 1930s era racing sloop that the British made that won the America's Cup. And so basically it's a yachting homage piece in that sense. But tell me it doesn't look like a Daytona. But then again, this is from the 90s. And the first Daytona had an El Primero movement. They had a chronograph prior to the Daytona with the El Primero, but I don't believe it was labeled Daytona. I know there are people who are going to correct me if I'm wrong, so I'm not going to worry about that. I know I'll be firmly corrected, but I strongly believe the first Daytona cosmograph, which I mocked in my Lunar Pilot video, because at least Bulova had the balls to make, I gave it back to my friend, but at least Bulova had the balls to make a lunar watch of their own, which they sent to the moon on the outside of the spacesuit, as opposed to the Rolexes that went to the moon on the inside of the spacesuit, glorified passengers, as it were. Wearing my Explorer 2 right now. I am not saying Rolex does not make good watches. I am not saying Rolex is not a good watch company. I'm not saying I do not own Rolexes, but stay in your lane, Rolex, you know? You're not a space watch. You used to be a great tool watch. This is the last great tool watch you made. And now that Zenith remembered its parallel development, not homage, not copies, Adrian, the time teller, as if the time teller is going to get my respect. The man doesn't even understand the crown on a Vostok. I watched his video, and frankly, a person who doesn't take the intellectual curiosity to look up a feature that they don't like or understand demonstrates to me that they're not a journalist, and they're just an opinion spouter, and the web is full of those people. Anything I talk about these watches comes from either direct experience or a healthy amount of research and hands-on. By trade, I'm a tech journalist. I'm a novelist, which, by the way, I give away a copy of my novel every month this year. Cyberchild, look it up on Amazon. But, I mean, one of the ways to compensate for talking too much, which I do, is don't talk about yourself, talk about other things, and be as accurate and factual as you can, which is why I'm a halfway decent journalist. So I was going to make this video about the Zenith Rainbow, and as I said, I'll make one about the Zenith Rainbow, but I have to address this issue on the new Zenith and the Daytona issue. And frankly, no offense, but anyone who thinks that it's a Daytona copy, homage, knockoff, either has a shallow knowledge of the history of the company, the history of horology. I mean, I hate to say it, not to knock those people or the companies that I'm going to mention, but anybody who thinks that the Zenith is a knockoff of the Daytona probably thinks the Tag Heuer was the first automatic chrono to hit the market. Frankly, it's a modular movement. And I mean, as I think I brought it up in a conversation in a previous video, this is a modular movement. This is a modular from Marie Lacroix. It's a annual calendar flyback chronograph, which is an impressive amount of complications. And it's made affordable by being modular. Tag Heuer beat Zenith to the market by months with a modular movement, which all the people who were being snooty D-bags about it, frankly, anybody who's being a jerk about it, are probably the same kind of people who crap on modular movements and non-in-house movements. And the Tag Heuer, it was a modular movement. And in the case of the first Daytona, it was this movement, all right? And this watch, screw-down crowns, the bracelet is very reminiscent. This did come out with a tachymeter bezel, not just a rotating diving bezel. And like I said, this watch is almost 30 years old, 90s to the, I'm an old guy, I keep forgetting. I mean, we're talking about, we're in the 20s now, so yeah, we're talking about 30 years, well, we're 20 years, we're on our 20-something year with it. So over 20 years ago, this came out, and looks a lot like the Daytona then too. So I would say it's a case of parallel development, all right? Parallel development from two companies. One who got royally shafted by events. They could not choose the fact that an American television company owned the name to their company and blocked them from the largest market on the planet forever. And then they got bought by that self-same American television company who proceeded to screw them into the ground. And if it weren't for the insane genius and balls and tenacity, I have to look up the gentleman's name, I'll put it into the comments, who put all of the El Primero tooling into essentially hiding until it came under new ownership, we wouldn't have the El Primero today. But the bottom line is the Daytona is a great watch, and Rolex is a great company, but it's not a horological company. It's a business company. It's a branding company. Heinz Wilsdorf was a business genius. He created a company and a brand and a market and then technology and all of those things to serve his customer base, and he did it well. And the company, frankly, I think Hans Wilsdorf today would look at the company today and be shocked as hell that they're trying to migrate upstream and become part of the triumvirate. They don't have any tool watches left. The Explorer 2 was the last tool watch they made. Everything else they made is now a sports watch or a sports luxury watch or a luxury watch. Where's their watch for the guy who goes out into the, or gal, who goes out into the middle of who knows where as an archaeologist and is going to be grubbing around in the dirt? They're going to wear a $10,000, $20,000, $30,000 watch? Where is Rolex's roots? That's one of the reasons I bought this Tudor, because I realized, you know what? The Tudor Prince Date is as good a watch as the Daytona in a lot of ways. I mean, of course, this is a 7750 Valjoux, so it's not as elegant, but from a tool watch basis, it's actually superior in that sense, because I know that every watchmaker on the planet can fix this movement. And I also know that it's an incredibly rugged movement. And it's in a Rolex design created. I mean, if you want to talk about homage watches, the Tudor Prince Date is about the most ultimate homage you're going to find on the freaking planet. And that thing is retailing, I shouldn't say retailing, that thing is worth aftermarket in the $5,000 area. So, you know, I think a lot of this brouhaha over the Zenith is posturing. I think a lot of people either are ignorant of or choose to be ignorant of Zenith's history, both its design history, optical history, visual history, and the fact that they have done something new with the scale. Every single frickin' non-diver watch in this industry has a tachometer scale. This sports dress watch has a tachometer scale because every frickin' chronograph in the industry has a tachometer scale because the coolest watch in the industry has a tachometer scale. And the Speedmaster is the coolest watch in the industry, hands down. Day and night, you could take it or leave it. That's my opinion. And you see my collection and the watches I love. But I mean, yeah, this gets a lot of cool points too. The tuning fork, the Accutron does make it. But the fact that the Speedmaster has a tachometer is why all non-diver chronographs that aspire to be a tool watch have a tachometer, even though the tachometer is useless to just about 99% of the people on the planet. Even if you're driving along the highway, how many times have you passed a freaking mile marker and gone, ooh, now's the time to use the tachometer scale? The fact that Zenith put a 10-second scale on the bezel does two things. Number one, it gives you something else to do with the bezel besides just have a tachometer or a rotating timing bezel. And two, it highlights the fact that the movement in the El Primero #1 was so good that Rolex used it the first time, and now is way better than what the Daytona has. And like I said, I'm not putting the Daytona down. I own a Rolex myself. I would love to have a Daytona if it was given to me at retail. But we both know that that's a fantasy, right? So they should just shut up. I don't want to sound rude, but yeah, they should just shut up. Because the more they talk, the more they're just showing their ignorance of horological history, their arrogance, their lack of imagination, and yeah, shut up. Please shut up. Just stop. Everything is through the lens of Rolex. We all know how I feel about that. I have nothing against Rolex, but we got to stop looking at everything through the lens of Rolex, okay? Please, let's just stop using Rolex in every frickin' word, all right? Every other word. Rolex has become so toxic that the president got criticized wearing a Rolex, you know? They over-succeeded now. But can we stop talking about them now, please? The Zenith is a fantastic watch. It's better than the Daytona. It looks like the Daytona the way the Speedmaster Panda looks like the Daytona, the way any watch with a ceramic bezel looks like the Daytona. Let's just drop this issue, please. Just shut up about it, please. I love you all, but let's talk about watch collecting. Let's not, measure our dicks about it in the horological realm, all right? The Zenith El Primero is a great watch in its own sense, and it, yes, looks a little like the Daytona, but the Daytona has always looked a little like the El Primero, and vice versa. That's parallel development over a history. And if Zenith had had the opportunity to get the American market before Rolex, maybe we'd be talking about Zenith as #1 and Rolex being the upstart still. And the fact that Rolex survived because it was a tool watch during the quartz crisis, and now it's become such a bloated, obscene aristocrat. I used to have 4 Rolexes. I have 1 left. What happened to the company? And what happened to the industry? I mean, I know people liked Rolexes, but I mean, Jesus, Creaseless, it's become an obsession now. I mean, it's like I said, it's become a hyper brand. It's dwarfed all reality. I would love to know your opinion on this. And yes, I've been venting, and I apologize if it offends you. I mean, this is a hobby channel. I'm not making a penny off of this. So I'd love to know what you think about it, though. I think this is BS. I think the people who are doing all of this, I realize these brands are probably paying some of these people, and I'm not going to say anything or point fingers because I'm not. They may not. Some brands just offer journalist discounts. Some brands I like. Frankly, the only brand that ever approached me with a journalist discount was Tag Heuer, and it fell through because I hemmed and hawed about the model I wanted, and they're like, well, screw you then. But I'm not going to just buy a watch because it's cheap. I'm going to buy it because I want one, or I want that model. And frankly, I think the fact that I'm not, like I said, maybe one day I'll be making a lot of money from this channel, and then, I can worry about that, but that's not my worry right now. My worry right now is I want to talk about watches and the air is just full of Rolex, And, you know, let's talk about the application space. What is a good field watch? And there's some good people talking about stuff like that, like Teddy Baldazar and the ID guy and some others that, you know, I did a list of them on one of my other videos. But the bottom line is frankly, this kind of discussion is toxic. It doesn't help anybody. It doesn't bring anybody anything. And it's just, you know, high school locker room backstabby bullshit, frankly. I mean, if you compare the watches, compare the watches. But the fact that Rolex has a bigger marketing budget and has overshadowed a brand that has had those similar looks since its inception, like I said, it just demonstrates a lack of imagination on the part of a lot of the people involved. That's just my 2 cents. I probably ran a lot longer on this than I expected, and the length of this may shy some people away, but I hope it created some more grist for the mill of discussion. And if you do have any ideas or comments or arguments on the point, I'd love to hear them. Okay, and please be civil, and I'll be civil. I'm not going to get angry or upset at people. I'm angry and upset at the environment that has been created because of this whole marketing aspect to what should be more of a true passion, hobby, evocation. You know, you don't have people saying that XYZ supercar looks like another supercar because they all have to fit through a wind tunnel. Watches have to have dials, bezels, and faces. And if you can only point to colors and materials, that's not saying a lot. So those are my 2 cents. If you liked what you heard, please subscribe. And like I said, my next video will be on the Zenith Rainbow, and we'll take a good look at it and I'll compare it to the true homage Daytona, the Tudor Prince Tudor Tiger, and we'll talk about homages and real watches, some more in that, but in a more focused context. So for now, thanks very much for taking the time to be with me. I appreciate it. Bye.